This project is to take an AVR robot from Lectrify.it and convert it into a continuous servo robot using art foam board. This foam board you can get from any art store like Hobby Lobby or Michael's. So what you'll need is a couple of continuous rotation servos, which you can get on Amazon. Of course, you'll need the AVR board. You'll need a small perf board with a couple of 3-pin headers. 2 wheels. Now these are aircraft landing wheels, rear landing wheels for flying model aircraft. You can also get those on Amazon for just a couple of dollars. And then you need a battery holder with a switch that holds 3 AAA batteries. And then for tools, you're going to need a hot glue gun, a ruler, a small Phillips, a very sharp X-Acto knife to cut the foam board, and a 3/8" drill bit, along with a soldering iron and, of course, solder. So let's get started. So the first step is we're going to have to cut a foam board base. And this foam board, you can see, is just some heavy cardboard with some foam in between, and you can get this at any art supply store like Michael's or Hobby Lobby. So obtain some board. It can be any color, it doesn't matter. And this particular board I'm using is about, I'd say almost 5 millimeters thickness. So what we're going to do is measure our board here, which is 80 millimeters, and we're going to add double the thickness of the board, which is another 10. So we're going to do 90 millimeters wide. And for the length, we're going to do the length of the board, which is about 73, including the USB connector. We're going to go out a little bit further though, because we're going to add a jumper board at the end of it to connect up the servos. So we're going to go out to 90. So we're going to do 90 by 90. Okay. So we're going to cut the foam board using a sharp X-Acto knife. Of course, be careful. And just cut a 90 by 90 millimeter square. So I've drawn the 90 by 90 millimeter square, and I've also included 2 10 millimeter wide by 90 millimeter slats. So these are going to be the sides that raise the board up off the baseboard. So go ahead and cut all that out. Next step is we're going to prepare the wheels. So these are wheels I got off Amazon.com, and these are just model airplane wheels made of foam and a nylon center. So you're going to take these. We can get them in different sizes, but once you get the wheel, you're going to take one side of it and you're going to drill it out. Now I happen to use a new 3/8" bit, so it's really sharp, and I'm able to just drill this out. And the reason for that is when we take the servo motors, we're going to be attaching the round actuator wheel onto the servo motor like this. So in order to get these thick wheels on, we'd either have to get like a really long screw, or just use this as is on the servo motor and then hollow this out part of the wheel, and then we're going to glue it on with hot glue, just like that. So you want to hollow it enough so that this clears. So just drill it out, hollow it out until you can see that the actuator wheel fits right there on the robot, nice and even. And then you're just going to glue it. So do that to both your wheels, and then we're going to attach these to the servo first, just like that. Little Phillips. Just screw that in. Just like that. Okay, we're good to go. And then we're going to just hot glue that on right there, just like that. So go ahead and do that to both your wheels. Of course, make sure you got it lined up nice and even. So to complete the wheel assembly, you're going to just hot glue on the wheel onto the actuator, the round actuator. And this one's already done. So the way I did that is you attach the actuator and make sure it's screwed on tight, it's not wobbling. Everything looks nice and tight. And you're going to take the wheel that you've already hollowed out with a 3/8" drill bit so that it'll clear the screw head. Just make sure that it clears. And you're going to take that wheel and then just fill the center. Just fill the center with hot glue. So just fill that center up like that. And then you got a few minutes to position it, so just stick it on there and then rotate it around. Make sure it all looks nice and centered. Like I said, you have a minute or two. That looks pretty even. And you just let it dry. Cool down. So that's it for the wheels. Now you take your pre-cut 90 by 90 millimeter board and you got the two 10 millimeter wide slits, and we're going to trim these down to just the length of the board, because this is going to be a support for the side of the board. So this is about 65 millimeters. So we're just going to measure out 65 millimeters. On both of these. That's it. Alright, then you're going to take the sharp, and the best surface to cut on is either one of those self-healing surfaces that you can get at the art supply store, or the glass tabletop like I have here. So just take your sharp X-Acto knife and slice through like that. There's one. And there's two. So now we've got those. Now you can take your 90 by 90, and what we're going to be doing now is gluing the battery holder onto the bottom. And the way we're going to glue it is to glue it with the switch showing here at the bottom. So it's going to be the top side of the holder, right? So the back side is here. And we're going to be gluing it just like that. This way we can get to the switch, and you can also loosen the screw, take off the cover to change the batteries. So from the bottom, what we're also going to be doing is attaching these servos. And you can attach them either way, this way or this way, it doesn't really matter. Let's do it this way, because they're going to be routing the wires to the back of the robot. So we're going to be gluing them onto there, and you can glue them in so that the wheel just clears. So that would be maybe the top edge of the gearbox here. So something along those lines. So we can do that. And then of course the other one is also going to be mounted on the opposite side. So I'm going to use the gearbox. So just like that. throw some glue on here. Just a little bit to start with. And we'll position this. And just kind of look at the edge of the gearbox, flat side, so that lines up with the flat side of the foam board. Just like that. And then we'll do the same thing with the other side. Just put a little bit of glue down here. And position that on there, just like that. So I lined up the edge of the gearbox with the edge of the foam board, and I used these top edges as the marker for how far down it comes. So that's preliminary gluing. We'll put some support glue on later. And then for the battery holder, we just positioned it in the middle. You want to make sure you can get to the battery, but you want to leave a little bit of extra room there to be able to flip it. So that looks pretty even. We'll just mark it with a pencil. Like that. And then we will throw some glue on here. And then position it. Press down, spread the glue out. That looks pretty good. So here is our base. Now with these wheels I got, these are giving me about I'd say about a 6-7 millimeter clearance for the battery holder. You can get larger wheels. And with hot glue, it's actually fairly easy. You can just slip an X-Acto knife right on this edge and just pry these off. So there's the basic base. Now we're going to do the sides. So next step, after you've cut these down to the length of the AVR robot board, we're just going to hot glue these onto the side. You just need a little bit. You just want to hold it in place. So we'll put a small dab here, small dab here. Just hold that for a minute. And we'll do the same thing with the other side. Again, just a small amount to hold it in place. This way you can always remove the board if you decide to use the board for some other project. And we're going to take the base. I'm going to position it so it's centered, just like that. And then we're going to hot glue it. So I'm just going to put a little bit right in here. going to do a bead right across like that. And the same thing on the other side. So now you can see there's a bead of hot glue right here and on the other side. Now we just let that cool. And we'll go to the next step. So for this next step, we're going to need the perf board. We're going to need 2 of these 3-pin headers, and also 3 connecting wires. Preferably if you can get them with these little pin headers on the end, so that you can just plug it into the board like that. You can get them on Amazon. What you're going to do is assemble the board, and basically we're just bringing over the wires from the servo onto the header board, and we'll be powering the servos off of the battery here rather than powering it off the small battery on the board itself, which would deplete it pretty rapidly. So this way, this power will give you a lot more running time for the robot. And then what we're going to do is hot glue the board right there in the middle. So you'll want to position these 3-pin headers, one on the right side and one on the left side. You want to keep the center area clear here. This way you can plug in your programming cable when you want to change the program in the robot. So go ahead and assemble that, and then we're going to hot glue it right there, just like that. Alright, so I've pushed in one of the 3-pin headers on one side of the board, and I've attached a piece of bare wire around the bottom terminal there, and then we are going to solder that. It looks like it's warmed up pretty good. So we're just going to slide it right into there like that. And then we will stretch the wire over to the other side. Got it. We will do the same thing on the middle terminal. So just rotate this. Around the center. Just like that. That looks good. I will position the other terminal and across on the other side. Just that. ground, which is the bottom wire. So we're going to attach that here. Like that. And then these are going to be the servo connections. So these will attach to the top pin that we haven't soldered to yet. And the last one goes to the other side. Just like that. Now our last step for the wiring is to attach the battery. So the bottom one is ground, and then the middle one that we had soldered up, this middle wire right here, that's positive. That around like that. Solder that one. It. Just like that. Now we'll attach the board. We'll glue it right here in the center. Our robot is coming along, our FoamBOT. As you can see, I've now glued in the center board, patch board, that patches in the servo motors. And we're ready to start plugging in things. What we should do first is go ahead and route these servo wires and strengthen the back a little bit. So we're going to take our hot glue gun and we're going to glue some along the edge of the servo, and again near the bottom over here, and the same thing on this side. This is just to give a little strength. And then the same thing with the battery holder. We'll just run a bead at the top, and then around the edge. Same thing on this side. Okay. So now we've done that. Next, we'll run these wires down. We just put a little bit of, in fact, you can probably use the glue that's already still setting for the battery. You just set the wire right in there. That's good. Now we're on the top of the board here. So now you'll see that the servo wires have 3 wires. We're just going to plug it into these pins. So the orientation is the darker wire is ground, the middle wire is positive, and the upper wire is the servo signal. So what we're going to do, ground is the bottom, so we're just going to match up the ground, plug that right in, and then we're just going to push the remaining amount of the cable up underneath the board. Another reason why we made this spacers to space up the board. Same thing with this one. Ground is down, just like that. And we'll push this up under the board. We got all the wires out of the way. Looking good. Now the one other thing we'll need to do to the bottom is there is, of course, a distance between the bottom of the battery and where the wheels hit the floor. In my case, it's about 5 or 6 millimeters. So we need to put like a little foot right here, about 5 millimeters in height, and we just hot glue it right there, just below the access screw for the battery. And this will make the robot level. And for right now, we're just going to leave it as is because it'll still drag itself around. So we have the green wire, which we connected to the ground plane on the board. So we just pick one of the ground sections. Since we're on the left, we'll plug it on the ground on the left of the robot. Now the 2 servo connectors, one will go to the A2 port, the top pin. So you can see that's on the top pin. And then the left one will go on the top pin of the A3 port, just like that. So now we've connected our servos to the AVR board, and we can program a little test program into the board and make the wheels both go forward and reverse. So we'll do that. Okay, we now have the board hot glued in. We have connectors all attached. Everything's routed away, and I also added the small foot. This happens to be a furniture foot, and I just cut off the pin and then hot glued it on the bottom. This gives a fairly even stature for this particular version of the robot with these wheels. So now we're going to program it with the demo sketch, and this demo sketch is what I call the AVR robot demo FoamBOT 1-0 sketch. So this is an initial sketch I wrote to run this robot. So we're just going to go ahead and program it. First of all, we make sure we got the main servo power off. Then we can plug in the USB, and you heard that. And then we'll turn this on, and then we're going to upload the sketch. So we're compiling, uploading, and you can see the LEDs flashing there, covering up the neos are kind of bright. It's uploading. Now it'll go through a reset. And now the robot's ready to go. It's in gesture mode, so we can actually unplug the programming. Oops, and you can see it's already trying to take off. But remember, we still have the servo power off, so let's turn it off. Turn on the servo power, and now if we gesture forward, see it's taken off. If we gesture backwards, it's going backwards. And if we go to the right, spin in place on the right. And if we go left, spin left. And then if we do a near or far gesture, it'll turn it off. So that's it. The sketch also includes, if you go into the light mode using S3, I have been playing with that part of it, but haven't done too much with it yet. So you can see, we'll generate some light here real quick. You see it taking off. So I haven't tweaked it quite yet, but if you want to play with it and tweak it, you can do that. And we can go back in gesture mode. Hey! Right off the table. That's it for now. I'm going to improve on the sketches as we go along, and I'll be posting those also.